Broadcasting live worldwide. Welcome.
Are you ready? Welcome. Señoras y señores, welcome
a Diálogo con Luis Otero. So welcome to a new episode of Dialogo with Luis Otero. This is your host, Luis Otero. Thank you so much to all the over 100,000 listeners worldwide that we have in every single month and every single episode. So I want to say thank you to all of you. And please follow us in all social media at Dialogo con Otero or the Luis Otero on Instagram. Today's an amazing episode, short but amazing. And I have a truly person that I respect, and I have been watching him for over 10 years in this amazing conservative Republican movement that I'm a part of. I'm a libertarian, right-wing, and I'm pretty honest about it. And everybody knows that they've been listening to the show. And I have today a tremendous Puerto Rican American with roots in New York. He's just a tremendous voice for Hispanic conservatives. He takes you on his journey in his weekly podcast that I think is one of the best conservative podcasts I think in the world. Rich Valdes, This is America. I have with me the amazing Latino, your liberty-loving Latino amigo, Rich Valdes. Rich, thank you so much for coming into the podcast. It's such amazing to have you here.
Oh, Luis, thank you, brother. I mean, what an amazing introduction. Thank you. You're very kind. I was waiting to say, man, I want to meet that guy too.
Rich, an amazing career. You do tremendous work with amazing Mark Levin, one of the best constitutional lawyers in the United States, and I think one of the best patriots that we have. And I'm going to be honest, Rich, you've been very important in the success of the best, I think, one of the best conservative nationally syndicated radio shows, Mark Levin Show. And as well, you have your movement that you already been carrying for many, many years because you're involved in education and you work as a former staffer with Governor Chris Christie, and you have done tremendous work in education. So in the current situation that we're living now, Rich, and people knowing a lot about your career because they're all of them excited, how we can battle all this nonsense that we're seeing from the Democratic Party and this violation of freedoms that really are affecting us at this point?
Well, you know, Luis, that's a great question. And I think that the number one thing that we have to do is really, I think, stay kind of clear-minded. You can't get all excited. And, you know, being Latino, getting excited is very easy, right? I mean, we get excited for anything. Somebody walks through the door, mira quien llegó, el tío. And you get excited because your uncle walked through the door. Emotion's a very big thing, and not exclusive to Hispanics. I think all Americans tend to really thrive on emotion. But this is something where we've got to realize emotions are at play, but we have to look at the actions that are at play. For example, we don't have military in the streets. We don't have military in our homes. We don't have members of the left-wing movement forcing things on us. They're using the rules to force things on us. So, and what I mean by that is this is not all-out fascism, right? This is truly a concerted movement to get you to walk down the plank all on your own without them holding a gun to you. And a lot of people don't seem to see it the way I see it. But that's really the case, right? Nobody is doing, there's a book from the 1950s, I'll put it this way. It's called Not a Single Shot Was Fired. And that's exactly where we are. Not a single shot has been fired, yet they're making advances in their movement in a ridiculous way. And I think many of us are saying, what do we do? How do we do? I'm ready to die for this country. And that's fantastic. God bless you for your patriotism. But dying for this country isn't going to help the country. Right now, what we need to do is fight back and win the battle of hearts and minds. They've been at it for 100 years. I think we've been at it for, maybe the last 50, and in large part since the Tea Party movement of 2010. And you mentioned the great one, Mark Levin. I think this new book, American Marxism, is really going to help a lot of people understand better how we're dealing with this particular adversary. So I think it's important for us to A, recognize the adversary, and B, push back. So in a nutshell, to give you the short version of that long answer, we have to be the change, like Gandhi said, the change that we want to see in this world. If you don't like what's happening in media and your name is Luis Otero, you're going to start a podcast and start influencing media, whether it's 1 listener, 10 listeners, or 100,000 listeners.
Correct.
Because that's how you start and that's how you do it. If you don't like what's happening in education, you're going to go into education. I worked in education as an administrator. I helped start a charter school. And I'm not trying to brag about me. I'm really not. I'll let you know when I'm bragging, right? Like when I brag about my hair.
Sure.
I'm really just saying a lot of this stuff came at great sacrifice to me because I could have probably made more money in my career doing other things, not working here or not working there, not doing this and doing that. But this is what happens. And there's other sacrifice that you go through. And just a quick story. The other day, I had the privilege, the honor of filling in for the great one, Mark Levin, on his program.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. 20 million listeners. It's just, including the podcast and the satellite syndication. And I'm used to the hate that comes after that. Oh, this guy's a sellout, un vendido, this and that. I've been hearing it for years. But they will hit you where it hurts. At 1 o'clock in the morning, my daughter woke up and from texts from her friends because someone had copied her Instagram account and tied it up to some sort of just nasty stuff, at making a fake account of hers because likely whenever I go on Levin, my social media gets really scrutinized and people, and they've done this to me in the past where they set up fake accounts with my face and my pictures. And again, I'm willing to play that game because I'm a big boy and I'm in the public square, but my kid's not. So if I wish my kid a happy birthday and they see who she is through her Instagram handle and whatnot, I think it's really messed up. Now, thankfully, Instagram did the right thing and they took down this disgusting site using pictures, legitimate, clean pictures of my kid, but tying them up to very nasty websites. And
that is
I
horrible,
thought,
Rich.
this is how the left operates. They will hit you without a single shot being fired.
These people are so bad. It's incredible that this CRT, critical race theory movement, and all this nonsense of brainwashing and indoctrination of kids is just really at this point that I'm a father of two, husband, and I have worked very hard for what I have in my career, and the same you and many millions of Americans. And this is just pure division, pure racism, pure segregation with all this nonsense. We're going back to Jim Crow days, and I don't know how the Democrats or people that they just even are in the middle, that they're turning left. I'm like, I don't know how they just don't understand what they're doing here. Rich, how, and in your experience quickly, how we can reach out to those people and try to bring them to the table, even though some of them, they don't like to have conversations because that word, what you and I were having, doesn't even exist this day.
Yeah, well, I think part of it is recognizing that you can't, the old saying, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. That's part of it. Realizing that there are some people that just you cannot have dialogue with, right? And this is Dialogo with Luis Otero. So you like to have a dialogue, and so do I. But when you're dealing with certain people, we can't change everybody's mind.
Correct.
And that's okay. I don't believe in changing people's minds. I believe in sharing my experience and my story and my truth so that you can experience it for yourself. But I also believe that in doing that, people will become more educated and equipped. But the bottom line is back to what I said before. We have to be the change that we want to see in this world. If we don't like something, we've got to change it. And that means getting help. So it will require you going to your neighbor who might be a construction worker or a lawyer or somebody who works in a bank or whatever it is and saying, hey, look, what do you think about what's going on lately? If they go, oh, you're one of those crazy Trumpers, and go, yeah, well, again, I think most people could talk to me for a few minutes and think, wow, there's nothing crazy about this guy.
Correct.
He doesn't seem very radical. But I do have some radical ideas, and I'll admit to that. I'll tell you one of my radical ideas. I think if your kids are in a public school and you don't like what your public school district is doing, I think step number one should be to go to a school board meeting and speak out and say, you know what, I don't like what's happening. Even if you don't have kids, it doesn't take too much sense to say, you know what you're doing is wrong, what you're teaching is wrong. You're going to ruin the future of America by indoctrinating these kids with ideas that I think are bad, and here's why I think they're bad. Do some research, and if that doesn't work, you keep going. Maybe you run for a school board seat, making that change, being that change. Now, if that doesn't work either, guess what? What I learned when I helped to start a charter school in Jersey City, New Jersey, every dollar is attached to the kid. So if kids don't go to public schools don't get as much money. And right now in Loudoun County, Virginia, you're seeing this all over the news everywhere. There's a big constant conflict. The parents are taking their kids out, and the school board's losing millions of dollars in what they would get because these kids are enrolled in school. So you can do that as a parent, as a taxpayer. You could urge other parents in your neighborhood. I mean, the dialogo, right? It's that dialogue that this is what we do as humans. We have this conversation. Now, the other part of what you were saying was, so again, I want to finish that thought.
Sure.
Take your kids out of public school, homeschool them. Catholic school them, do whatever you want to do with them, but you can hit them in the pocketbook because that's what they're doing to us. Now, number two, is I think we have to understand why is this happening. So I think Levin explains it really well, again, in American Marxism and again in Liberty and Tyranny. These are really, really good books to read because these are not his ideas per se. He's explaining to you from a large historical context how these movements came to be and uses his own expertise to break them down. And I think that's why there's so much value in these books. But bigger than all of that, I think one simple way, and I don't like to oversimplify anything because I think there's a lot of detail that's important to things, but God, right? God has been a central point of the whole existence of this country. We said we're getting taxed too much by the British, so, tyranny, and we want to pray where we want to pray, and not to the Anglican Church, the Church of England. This was a big deal, and it sparked a revolution, at least, again, encapsulating in a very oversimplified way. This is why we sparked this revolution. I'm not calling for a revolution now, at least not a physical hot war type of revolution, but make no mistake about it. I think we're in a cold war of ideas, a battle of ideology, where not a single shot's being fired. So we have to fight back in an intellectual way. And we have to make sure that our children are prepared to go into this world. Now, a lot of people may not have children, and this is a point that I bring up on my podcast, This is America with Rich Valdes. I always harp on this. There are people like AOC, all out crazy. Now, AOC,
she's super
something
crazy.
that
She's nuts.
Oh, yeah. That's what the AOC stands for, all out crazy. She has said that she's not going to have children, or at least is not considering doing it now because she's afraid the world is going to end in 12 years because of climate change. Now, she is a legitimate leader on the left. People look up to her. There are little kids that want to be like her, especially amongst
she never have done anything. Never have done anything. She never have accomplished anything. And Rich, you have lied this very well in your podcast. And I say this because it's at this point, this became very personal to me. I wasn't involved in politics. I was one of those voices that I had my podcast and that's it. And this became very personal to me when I became a parent. And I start to listen to you, and you have inspired me and Levin and Limbo, God bless his soul, and many others. And they really, you guys wake me up, and millions and thousands and millions of young guys like myself for what this country needs to do. Great. Last thing in this amazing quick interview.
I want to finish the thought that I was on, because I think AOC is a leader on the left. And with AOC being a leader on the left, I think something that's really important here for us to realize is that people are looking up to her. And when they're looking up to her, the left is willing to say, I'm not going to have kids. Guess what? You want to unseat a Republican congressman in Texas, a nice red state, or in Florida? All right, let's go. I'll move there with all my friends, and we'll all share an apartment, and we'll do what we got to do to beat one assemblyman, one congressperson, one mayor, one city council person. And if you think I'm making it up, read a book called The Blueprint. This is not a conservative book. This is a book written by the Four Horsemen, one of which is currently the governor of Colorado. And before that, he was a congressman. And I think before that, he might have been an assemblyman, if I'm not mistaken. And his name's Jared Polis. And they leveraged and this is just one example, but they leveraged in large part the gay community all across America from the days of Obama. And they said, we're going to have a 10-year plan to turn Colorado blue. And they went at it, and they raised money in San Francisco, in New York City. They raised millions and millions of dollars for commercials, all for one legislative district, one. Because they knew that if they won one, they could win another with that same formula. And this is exactly what they've been doing across the country. So AOC, her movement is the climate people. I like to call them the climate crazies, the all-out crazies. So we have to be aware of what they're doing and how they're doing it. And I'll tell you, the answer is not just to sit there and complain. A lot of people tell me the criticism that I get is, well, Rich, it's great. Everybody wants to complain about these things. We know there's a lot of problems. What are we going to do about it? I tell them we've got to dig a little deeper, and again, to bring up Levin's book again, because this is something that I've learned being a kind of student of his for many years. Sure. I can tell you that Levin always says, it's not what are we going to do, it's what are you going to do, because I already know what I'm doing. And yeah, he led the Tea Party revolution in 2010 and was doing all those rallies. And now he doesn't do as many. He's older. He has a different life situation. He's busier. He's doing 3 TV shows. So I get it. And people try to put the heavy lifting on other people, saying, you know what, you're the one with the platform. You're the one with all the listeners. You're the one with this and that. You need to do this. And my response to them is, no, We have to do it together. You've got to do your part. I can't take your kids out of school. I can't go to your school board
They're
meeting.
going to
I
private
can't write
school.
letters.
I was the
on your
first one
behalf.
to say they are not going to public school. They're going to Catholic school, and that's what we have done. Rich, we got very few minutes here, very quickly. You're very important to us and very important to the movement and many others that they do the same work as you do, Mark, and the Charlie Kirks of the world
Thank
that
you.
I love. What we need to do. And people, November the 2nd is an important day in elections. You got to go and vote. And you got to go and vote for your Republican, governor in New Jersey, Jack Ciattarelli. You got to vote for that guy. That's the guy there. Curtis Lewa is the guy for the New York City. And he needs to be Jared Adams. He's another part of this pack of people that they're unfortunately being part of the problem. They give you problems and then they want to give you the solution. It doesn't work like that. Your last words, Rich, for this edition of the podcast. I would love to have you back again, but the message to our audience that they gotta go and vote November the 2nd.
Thank you. Thank you for keeping us on time. And if you have a couple of more minutes, I just want to share a thought with you.
Sure.
Because I think you're right. Voting is such a key part, and something that again, and you might want to call me crazy. I'm not a big conspiracy theorist. I don't believe in the tinfoil hat too much. but I will tell you this: when people all over the place, I have the benefit of just speaking with a lot of people regularly, daily, and a lot of them say, "Listen, it doesn't matter what's happening with the $3.5 trillion bill in Congress that's now 1.75. It doesn't matter what's happening with the school system. None of it matters because we can't change anything until we clean up our elections, until we fix the problem with our elections." And I say something like this. I think you're wrong. I think that if I'm a New Yorker, born in Brooklyn, raised in Jersey, born to Puerto Rican parents, and I can tell you, living in New York, living in Jersey, having traveled wherever, if you go to a place that's ridden with crime and people are getting robbed at a very high rate, and let's say you go and you don't get robbed, does that mean that you absolutely, of course you have to fix your crime problem, but it doesn't mean that you can't travel somewhere and not get robbed. Now, people think this is not really a very fair analogy, and I think it's totally a fair analogy. New York City right now is absolutely on fire. It's crazy. But that doesn't mean that you couldn't go with your family and be lucky enough to get in and out and have dinner and do what you got to do. So my point is, there were 3,000 counties that voted for president in November of 2020. 6 of those counties were questionable.
All of them.
We saw bad things. The other nearly 3,000 weren't, right? So my point is, the system needs fixing. We need to address problems. We need to step up and be the solution that we want to see. But it doesn't mean that we abandon ship. Somebody was telling me, the ship has holes in it. It's sinking. I agree. The ship is sinking. We need to plug the holes. Others say, forget plugging the holes. Let the ship sink and build a new ship. If you burn down America, you're never getting her back.
I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that because this is the best country in the freaking world. And I say it very clearly here. This country is the best country in the world. You can do whatever you want in this country. Your effort, your desire, your passion, that's what you got to bring to the table. And as well, do the right thing. People that do the right thing go, places, and we gotta go places November the 2nd. We gotta vote Republican. We gotta vote for those people that really are looking after our kids and they're looking for the best interests of this country in the United States. And not only that, but just go to the school boards and go to your local, mayor, local school board, and just fight back. We gotta fight back. This is very personal because our kids are our future, and they've been manipulated and they've been violated by just indoctrination of many horrible things that we all know because they're in social media and in the press. And we have to vote on November the 2nd. Jack Ciattarelli in New Jersey. If you're in New Jersey, you got to vote for him. We got to get Phil Murphy out. He's the most corrupt governor I have seen in my life in New Jersey. I have seen it. It's just horrible, everything. And the amazing thing is that our James O'Keefe, Project Veritas, that you were a very key part of the success, earlier in the days when they were starting. James O'Keefe doing God's work. They have exposed the campaign of Phil Murphy. Go to Project Veritas as well and just watch those videos. They explained by themselves.
Luis, one more thing I want to add to that is, again, just to finish the thought on voting,
Sure.
is I think you're right. It's so important that we go and vote because again, this is not about, if there's a rash of robberies in your neighborhood, you don't say, sell the house, right? Burn the house down. You don't do that. You say, you know what, we're going to have a neighborhood watch. You go and you complain to the police. You say, I want a cop on my corner. I want a cop patrolling more often. That's where we're at. It's not time to abandon ship. It's actually time to actually vote like we've never voted before. Get more people. Get all the people that were like you that say, I don't like politics. I don't get involved. I just want to feed my kids, go to work. That's the problem. The idea that we had fallen into of saying, you know what, never talk about politics, never talk about religion. Just mind your business. Keep to yourself. That's the problem. We have to be out there. We have to be free to speak about what we want to do. Get in touch with our neighbors. Build a coalition. You may lose a few friends, but you may also gain an army. And when you have that army in your neighborhood, and then they say, you know what, oh, there's a thing in New York like there is yesterday, today, and today, and probably tomorrow, these huge rallies. There was 20,000 people yesterday in Manhattan at City Hall protesting Bill de Blasio because of vaccine mandates. There's rallies in Trenton that are going on that aren't getting as much news because of what's happening in New York City. But you're right, Phil Murphy, he's a really good politician, and he knows exactly what to say and when to say it to really kind of confuse people. Now, this is something that I think, you know what, we've got to be very cautious of this, because de Blasio is an easily hateable guy. You look at him and you go, I can't stand this guy. But Phil Murphy's a very likable guy. Even if you don't like him on TV, in real life, I can tell you he's a very charming guy, and people tend to like him. Something Governor Christie taught me when I worked in the Christie administration was it's very difficult to hate somebody face to face.
That's so
true. It's a lot easier to like them.
Yeah.
So politicians take advantage of that, and they realize that. Now, I'm not saying that we should go and hate the politicians. I think we need to practice our dialogo, right? Our dialogue in dealing with these politicians and dealing with the issues and, seeing the mayor, seeing so-and-so. And I'm guilty. Phil Murphy passed right by my house on July 4th in the 4th of July parade. I could not help but yell, I'm voting for Citarelli, right?
Yeah, of course.
I don't know if that was the most polite thing, but that's what I said. Now, when his team passed by, I was a little less restrained, and I told him Murphy sucks, gave him a thumbs down. I booed. A few of my neighbors joined me, but most of the people were just like, who cares? Politics is politics. And I think that's what we got to work on, making sure that people realize politics is not always politics. There are people that care, and we saw this with Trump. He left his skyscraper on Fifth Avenue. He left the beautiful palace that he built for himself in New York City. He took his supermodel wife, put all of his kids and their careers on the line. For what? To go to the swamp, to get beat up, to get maligned, to get accused, to get this and to get that, and to lose $500 million. He's not even on the Forbes list anymore. He's the only guy I know that went into Washington and came out with less money because he went there to bring down the corruption. And that's what we have to focus on, bringing down the corruption. I know people get frustrated when they say, oh, Attorney General Barr didn't do anything. This one didn't do anything. I think I might have a little bit of immunity to some of that because I worked in government. And when you work in government, you see how disgusting the government really is and how justice is really an idea that you and I like to think about. It's kind of like puppies and unicorns, but it's not always real, especially with politicians. There's not a long list of politicians that have gone to jail for political corruption, but there is a long list of corrupt politicians. So this is the problem that we have, but we can fix it by being the change that we want to see in the world. Not to sound too much like Gandhi.
No, you are. It's truly amazing, Rich. All what you have shared with us in this amazing episode. I really hope that we can schedule another episode again. The amazing Rich Valdes, everybody, the host of This Is America, one of the best podcasts in the world for conservatives.
Thank you.
Tremendous content. Go to any platform of podcast, listen to This Is America with Rich Valdes as well. Just, listen to Rich. And since he's very crucial part, an important part of the Mark Levin Show, he works with him, and he's been a crucial part of the success of the show. Rich, we thank you so much for what you have been doing. We really appreciate everything. Hope that I can see you in New York. I don't live that far from New York. I'm like an hour and a half away here in Pennsylvania, and we're rooting here for Lou Bartoletta for the Republican Party. We want him.
Gotta vote.
Yeah, we gotta vote for him, and we gotta take Tom Wolf out. That he have harmed a lot of Pennsylvanians and people like us. So again,
and
thank you.
Don't send him to Washington like you did with Rachel Levine.
Oh my God, that was the worst move. He is responsible for thousands of deaths and is a very irresponsible and horrible individual that have put himself in the middle of this administration just to create more harm to our kids. I will never tolerate that. So, Rich,
Te echo la culpa a ti because you're from Pennsylvania.
Don't blame it on me. Blame it on the ones that they voted.
Don't blame me. I voted for Trump.
Rich, thank you so much again. Listen to Rich in every single platform. This is America. Rich, this is your house anytime. We'll love to have you back again.
Thank you, Luis. Thank you to everybody in the Dialogo audience. Let's go, Brandon.
Yeah, let's go, Brandon, all the way. El Baboso Biden. Thank you so much, Rich Valdes. Thank you to all of you. Please go and vote November the 2nd. We got to take our country back, and we got to keep pushing hard. Please share the word, spread the word. Go to Rich Valdes in his Instagram, share his episodes and his clips. And again, we'll see you guys next time in Dialogo with Luis Otero.